Good morning, everybody. It's Sue with it'salwaysfabulous.etsy.com, and today what I'd like to talk about is resist chipboard in particular. And everybody wants to use mists with resist, but I thought I'd drag some other stuff out of the toolbox and see what really works well with resist. So what I'll be using today a lot is cut and dry stamp pad foam. They also have a craft foam, but I use the stamp pad foam. And what it is it's basically a huge sheet of feels like makeup sponge, but it's got different porous characteristics than makeup sponge with rubber on the back. And I use that for blending, and I use it for a lot of other things. And what I like about it is that you can just lop off a little piece, and then if this is specific to an ink pad, you can just kind of rubber band it to the ink pad and never have to cut another one for that. Or, you know, there's such a small investment in this, I can toss it away if I mess it up and I'm done with it. So first thing I'm going to look at is this is Resist. It's called Chipboard, and it's from I don't know if you can see the whole package. It's from Hampton Arts, and it is 24 pieces of spritzables. So it's got resist and regular. It's all white chipboard, and so you see the dragonfly here up in the corner, this way over here, and that's this piece here, so you can kind of get an idea of the size. So the first thing that I started with was Tim Holtz Distress Ink. And I just took this piece of foam and got it a little bit colored on here, and then just started to go like this. Okay, so you can see that it comes up. It does color the raised and the resist piece. It does color them a little bit, but not quite as much. And then if you take the pad and go around, you get that better color around the edge, that defining color around the edge. And actually you can also do this by taking the ink directly to the chipboard and then taking off the excess. And you can layer it. You can put, you know, a bunch of different colors on it. You can layer it, you can let it dry, you can put some more on until you get the right depth of color. So this is like one layer on this side and 2 layers on this side. So it's interesting. And then you can also, because it's got that chipboard edge, take your sponge, which you've used to remove the extra, and get the chipboard around the edges. Okay, so that's Distress Ink with sponge and resist chipboard. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, which is kind of interesting because I actually expected this one to work less well than the rest, and it actually surprised me. So these are watercolor pencils. You have to make sure that they say watercolor, otherwise this won't work. Can't be the regular like coloring pencils. Okay. So what I did with this the first time was I just kind of went like this. Okay, and then you can take a brush with a little bit of water on it and go like this. Paper towel takes off the excess, and it's a very, very light tone. The other thing that you can do is, instead of putting the pencil right on the chipboard, is you can put the pencil under the brush and wet it until you get some of that color transferred onto the brush, and then put it on, and it's obviously much darker. Okay, and then take it off. Okay, now the other thing that you can do, and this is why I have 2 of them out, is you can take a harsh line like this and make it a really hard line. Okay, and then you can take this and literally color it. And it works best, of course, if you're working on dry chipboard, not on the wet chipboard that I have now over on this end. Okay, but then if you take a brush, and you don't want it really wet for this, okay, you can do this. Okay, and this allows you on your resist to get different colors and shades. I don't know why I'm working with this junky brush today, because I really couldn't find my others, and I really, you know, was in a hurry to get this video done this morning, so but you can see that with the pencils drawing right on the piece, you get a whole different look to it. And if you, once you get this to the point where you like it, and you can always, you know, always more. Never a problem with always more. Okay? If you just let it dry, you're going to get that deeper color. Okay? So this was my first attempt, but I took off too much of the background, and this was just straight with the brush. And again, with this, you can layer it. What I also liked about this is that the white parts stayed whiter. Okay? If we go back and look at this distress ink for a minute, it colored the resist parts a little bit. Here you get a whiter distress part. Okay, so I'm going to take that one away. The next thing that I used was Stays On ink. Okay, Stays On, as you know, is more for non-porous surfaces. It's got a different chemical characteristic. So what that does to the resist, okay, is that it colors your resist parts as well as the paper. Okay, and you know, which is fine. It's a great look. Okay, and it also you get a much deeper color if you go straight with the pad. Straight to it, and then lighter again. Right, and then what's interesting about this is, you know, the more you play with it, the more different looks you're going to get, and the more you let it dry before you touch it, the deeper the color is going to stay. Okay, so you can actually, you know, now you have this bird that's different different levels of intensity of the same ink. Okay, so that again is Stays On, and that's a vibrant violet color for that. But I don't know, when I watch YouTube videos, the colors are not exactly pure for me. So next I used a Versa Magic, which is a chalk ink, and I used Night Sky. I tried to use darker colors because they show up better. And what's interesting about this one, again, is the fact that it colored the resist part. Okay, and I love this piece of chipboard. Lots of lines and stuff on it. Okay, and as you can see on the drier part, it colored the resist part a lighter blue, lighter shade of the same blue. So again, you could take this and take your, and you don't have to use these individually. You could take, this is what the distress ink looks like with it, and you can layer that on top of there like that. This is the Stays On in there with it. These are just the dry brushes that I was using to show you the other things. And you can layer the colors, and it will affect the resist parts and the background parts differently depending on what you're doing. Okay, so that's again Versa Magic, and we'll put this one aside. Now, digging way back in the supply cabinet, I don't know if any of you have Twinkling H2Os. This was a product that was out a couple of years ago, and then the company got sold, and then they kind of went away for a while, and now they're back. Okay, so what these are these are little pots of color. And they are like the tempera paints that you had when you were a kid. They're stored dry. So what you do is, when you're ready to use it, you take it and you wet the top surface. Okay, and you give it a little bit of water. Okay, and not too wet, but you just kind of keep mixing like this until it comes up to a pretty good consistency. Now these are shimmery, and it's like a pearly goldy silvery shimmer, and it's a very intense shimmer depending on, again, how much water you put in them. But the key with these is to put it on and then take it off. And unlike a couple of other things that we're going to see, when you take it off, you don't take the shimmer off. Okay, so I'm just going to lift this up and take this off like this. And I know you can't see it, but this is a very shimmery, pearly looking thing, and it's got a good white light resist on it. And again, it's, if I add a little bit more water and make it a little bit runnier, okay, it just goes on a little bit faster and a little bit shallower. And you can actually see those resist pieces come up, right? And then again, take it off. Okay, but this is very pearly looking on the paper. So that's sprinkling H2Os, twinkling H2Os, not sprinkling, twinkling H2Os, and come in a little pot and use them with a paintbrush and water. Okay, so next I went to October Afternoon sprinklers, and I'm not much of a mister girl. I find it messy, and I usually don't, you know, spread the table the way I should and everything else. Okay, but I wanted to try these on there, so I've already done this half. So I'm just going to show you this half real quick, and I'm going to spray it all over my table, obviously. So, all right. So some people like the unevenness of it. So you can leave it dry like that, and you can see that the resist shows through. I prefer to do this. Okay, and this covers the resist pieces just a little bit too much for me personally at this lighter shade. So because I wanted it to be a little bit darker, you have a couple of options. You can actually take your paintbrush again, and boy, you know, if I would have known I was going to use this paintbrush this much, and you can actually paint it. Just dip it right in the bottle and paint it. Okay. Get all the way to the edges. Okay, and then I like to count to 10 to give it a little bit of time to dry up a little bit, or you can, you know, run a dryer over it. Okay. And then if I take that off, I still have some of that blotchy from the first layer, but now I've got a deeper color. The other thing that you can do with this, and I don't know what I did with the little sponge. I had all this stuff laid out, so today must not be my day to shine here. There it is. You can actually take a piece of this sponge and tip this over, tip the bottle over onto the sponge a little bit, and then because it's a bit over here, and then you can actually dauber this on like this, and you're going to get some texture with that, and you're going to get a brilliant intensity color, just bright, 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 bright color. And you can see how the resist shows up even more now that I've put more on there. Okay, so kind of 3 different layers. This is the 3 layers when they dry, so you are going to lose a little bit of that color, but really, really, I like it better that way. And if you're at the end and you say, you know what, I'm sorry, I covered up all those dots and all that spray look, you can just go ahead and spray it and still have more. Okay, so again, that's the October Afternoon sprinklers. They come in a whole bundle of colors, 3 to a package. And the second to the last thing I did here was I used Glimmer Mist. And for this one, I used Meadow Green. And, you know, there's this at the bottom. when you're working with it, when it's been sitting for a while. So you just have to keep shaking until that all goes away, and you have a clear bottom that's the same color as the rest. Okay, and probably everybody knows Glimmer Mist, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, except to say that if I spray it and do this, okay, again, I still have some blotchy things, and I have a little tiny bit of glittery stuff. But on this, my favorite thing to do, if I really want the glitter on it, is again to take the paintbrush all the way to the bottom, okay, and put this on like this, paying special attention to the resist areas so I get a good clean definition. So you can surely spritz your first layer to get the droplets on there, and then I would let it dry before I went over it with the paintbrush. You can move this around with a paper towel or whatever, but what happens with that, with the Glimmer Mist, is that it tends to take up all the glitter onto your wiping tool. Okay, so if this dries, it's going to look like this, which, as I'm looking at it, is very shimmery. Okay, so that's Glimmer Mist. The last thing I wanted to show you was some of these same things with just a tag. Nothing, you know, nothing new under the sun here, okay? But if I take a stencil, and I have this stencil from Crafter's Workshop, which I really like a lot. A lot of people have their stencils strictly for their misting product, but if I just take the sponge that I was using with the StazOn, for example, let me get that open, and this is a pounce, not a swirl, okay? This is a pounce, not a swirl, and I just keep going back to the ink pen and pouncing over and over. Now this is not going to be perhaps as crisp and defined as you would like it. And then when you get done with your stencil, just take the other end of the foam and just kind of clean the extra color off. But then what I can do is I can take another one, and this is actually the leftover from the October afternoon. I didn't put anything else on here. This is just the leftover from the last piece of the project that I did. And look, I have another one and another one still with the Distress ink. Okay, and I have a great tag, and that's just basically using what was left on the table after I did that. I like to make a tag like this or something like this when I'm done with sponges for the day, because it uses up all that extra product that's still on the pad, and it's just going to dry on the pad and it's going to age the pad. So if I take the last bit of it and put it out on the tag, then I've got a great tag, and I've used up all the stuff that's left on my pads. So that's what I have today. Again, the product that we used today was Spritzboard, Chipboard shapes from Hampton Arts, and it also comes in Spritzboard alphabets. Okay. This is a complete set of alphabets, and it's actually frames, and alphas. So there's actually 3 components to every piece. Okay, and those are for sale at itsalwaysfabulous.etsy.com. That's what I have to say today. I am running a special on the blog. It's purchase with purchase, so if you have a chance, stop by there. And thanks for listening all the way to the end. I appreciate it.